Welcome to the Deep Dive. So today we're exploring a really unexpected angle on change. What happens when a familiar struggle just, well, stops? We're talking weight loss, yes, but with a twist you probably haven't considered. Our sources, they immediately hooked us with this specific line. The thing that surprised her wasn't the weight coming off, it was the craving that didn't show up.
Hmm.
What if the most, surprising part of this journey isn't the physical stuff, but that psychological shift? When a lifelong battle just goes quiet. Let's take Kate. She's 46, mother of 3. She was about 2 months into using semaglutide. And on paper, everything looked great. 7 pounds down, side effects were minimal, blood sugar improving. But she told her coach, Dan Hollis, something really striking. She said she felt like a ghost in her own kitchen. Just picture for a second. Kate walks past her pantry, a place that for like 20 years was always signaling something, right? Always this internal chatter. And for the first time in 2 decades, nothing. Nothing reached back, as she put it. The usual pull, that familiar whisper, gone. That's a huge moment of silence. I mean, wow, that must feel incredibly disorienting.
It really is. And that profound silence, that's exactly what Dan Hollis calls the quiet window. He talks about it as the moment where the food stops answering your questions and the real ones start talking. It's this space, that opens up when the biological noise, those constant cravings we all know, finally quiets down.
The real questions start talking.
Okay. Yeah. And what's fascinating and maybe a bit unexpected is how this quiet window shifts the focus almost immediately. Dan Hollis's work, especially looking at his field notes like entry #1, the day the food craving didn't come, it shows this often leads to, well, grief. The grief of losing the thing that numbed you. Think about that.
Grief for something that was, well, arguably harmful.
Exactly. The very habit, the very pattern that might have been causing problems, maybe even unraveling parts of your life. It's gone. And that absence, that void, can feel deeply, deeply unsettling.
Wow. Okay, that's powerful. It's almost like, I don't know, mourning a toxic relationship or something.
That's a really good analogy, actually. It's very similar.
So what does Hollis teach us then? About navigating that emotional space when the old coping tools just aren't there anymore. How do people build a new story for themselves from that quiet place?
That's really the core of it, isn't it? And that's our mission today, to unpack that. It's central to his thinking, especially in pieces like The Story Beneath the Weight, What Cravings Can't Hide. When that familiar rhythm of craving fades, you step into this whole new psychological landscape. And Dan guides people to not just notice the quiet, but to understand what else might be coming up. Feelings, questions, maybe even that sense of loss we talked about. And then he helps them build a new way, a new narrative for understanding themselves in that space.
Dan Hollis puts it so well. Weight loss is biology. Staying there is narrative. I love that distinction. He stresses that, your body can change surprisingly quickly, but your identity, the story you tell yourself about who you are, well, that takes time. That's where the real work happens, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's not just about shedding pounds. It's about your sense of self catching up.
Which must be where support comes in.
Exactly. And this is where his concept of scaffolding is so crucial. Dan doesn't see support as just like a nice to have. He says support isn't optional. It's neurobiological scaffolding.
Neurobiological scaffolding.
Okay. So take semaglutide, for example. It offers a pause, right? A much-needed break from the constant noise of appetite. But, and this is Dan's warning, that silence, it can actually be dangerous if you don't fill that space with something genuinely nourishing, something supportive.
Right, because the old patterns might rush back in, or maybe something else entirely.
Precisely. And this ties into another key insight from Dan, one that really reframes setbacks. It comes up in what Dan Hollis taught me. He says people don't relapse into hunger. They relapse into confusion.
Into confusion, not hunger. Okay, that flips the script.
It really does. It means setbacks aren't failures. They're predictable moments. They're the body and brain trying to sort of recalibrate. They're signals that you're human. And importantly, they're chances to learn something.
So those moments that feel like you're sliding backward, they're actually part of moving forward. I really like that reframing.
It's part of the learning process.
Dan even uses an analogy for this, doesn't he? He talks about the journey not being a straight line.
Right. He describes it more like a spiral staircase.
A spiral staircase.
Yeah. Sometimes you might feel like you're going in circles, revisiting old feelings or familiar patterns. But the key thing is, even when it feels circular, you're actually climbing. You're still learning, still moving upward.
That's a much more hopeful and probably realistic way to see it. So, okay, let's bring this home for the listener. If you find yourself in your own quiet window, maybe you're facing that unexpected silence where a craving used to be, Or you hit a setback that feels confusing, unsettling. Remember Dan Hollis's guiding questions for that very moment. What am I feeling? What do I need? Who do I want to become?
Those are the core questions, because this whole journey, ultimately, it isn't just about eating less, as Dan Hollis puts it so powerfully. It's about living more. It's about discovering what's really there when all that noise finally goes quiet, allowing your own truth to speak. It's about, truly coming home to yourselves when the familiar hum fades and maybe, just maybe, a deeper voice starts to emerge. You're not broken. You're just beginning, maybe for the first time, to really hear yourself again.